Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, another Friday afternoon and another monster weekend for USC on the recruiting trail. The name of the game continues to be line of scrimmage players, front seven defenders. That is the position that Chad Bowden has come in and has immediately prioritized. I've been very vocal, love that concept. It's really hard to address those positions in the transfer portal, fill it up with those kind of players at the high school ranks. And I think if you're a USC fan, you feel like a commitment or two is coming over the next couple of days. Now we're just trying to figure out, all right, what are the names that are going to be committing to USC over the weekend. We'll obviously break down whatever commitments happen over the weekend. Want to get into some of the names that I think intrigue me the most that will be on campus for USC. Before we get into it, as always, the USC fans, I cannot thank you guys enough. It's been so fun breaking down the commitments, talking about these visit weekends, the amount of support that the USC fans have shown the boys in the month of March and the month of April. It's been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We got that USC commitment sweatshirt sitting right on the chair. Have a feeling it's going to be coming on at some point this weekend. Appreciate you guys. And to the USC fans, look, I know y'all live and breathe this program. If you're listening to this right now, you're dialed in to what's going on with the recruiting trail. Call your shot in the comment section. Who do you think's going to pop and commit to USC over the weekend? We'll chop it up down there. Without further ado, let's start with really one of my favorite prospects in the 2026 class, regardless of position. Five-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson from the state of Georgia. My mind immediately goes to, man, what is this defense going to look like over the next couple of years? You got Xavier Griffin already committed to USC. He's the number one linebacker in the country. You got Tyler Atkinson on campus to USC. He's the number two, arguably the number one linebacker in the country. And then you're also trending for a guy like Talona Illy, who I think is probably my third favorite linebacker in the country. USC, I think, identified that in 2024, guys like Mason Cobb, guys like Easton Mascarenas Arnold, they just weren't the caliber of athletes that Danton Lynn desires in this USC linebacker room. And you could tell on the field, I mean, there were teams that were kind of picking on the team speed and athleticism of the USC linebackers. I think Danton Lynn's sitting there and saying, hey, we got to get more athletic at this position, especially when you look at where the sport of college football is going on offense, where, I mean, so many offenses are just trying to get their speed in space. And you have to have linebackers that can run, chase, and tackle in space. If you want to have a successful defense in this era of college football, your linebackers got to run, got to close distance quickly, and they got to be able to tackle in space. Xavier Griffin sure can. Tyler Atkinson can too. And I think what fascinates me the most about Tyler Atkinson, this is a true off-ball linebacker. When you look at a lot of other linebackers coming out of high school, they spend a lot of time coming off the edge because they're some of the best athletes in the country, and the high school teams want to use them as edge rushers. Now Tyler Atkinson, he can certainly come off the edge and he can certainly get after in the pass rush, but primarily plays the off-ball linebacker spot. He's not only probably the fastest linebacker in the country that I have seen, but he also, between the ears, he processes so fast. I mean, this is a guy that not only is physically extremely gifted, but also understands the sport of football at such a high level. Whether it's picking through trash, whether it's dropping back in zone coverage, he can do anything you want at the linebacker position. And again, that is such a priority, especially playing in the Big Ten, where you look at the landscape of the Big Ten and say, one week could be going on the road to Kinnick Stadium and playing the Iowa Hawkeyes, where you need your linebackers to play in a phone booth and be physical at the point of attack. And then the next week, you might be going on the road to Eugene, Oregon, and playing a team that's got a ton of speed and space. You have to have your linebackers that can do both. Tyler Atkinson certainly can. This is a trend we're seeing with USC recruiting linebackers. We want freaky athletes. Tyler Atkinson is one of those guys. Arguably, another really just a intriguing name that's going to be on campus is Valdon Stone from Virginia. Now, he's from Virginia, grew up in Europe, is new to the sport of football. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Floyd Bucard, who committed to USC in the 2025 cycle, where he grew up in Canada playing hockey, didn't play a ton of football until he got to high school and kind of took off. Valdon Stone, very similar. One thing that we've noted a lot over the last couple of weeks is there's not that many of these kind of bodies in this 2026 cycle, and USC's making it a priority to get those kind of bodies. Talk about Tom Time, talk about Jamie and Winfield. Veldon Stone's another one of those guys. At 6'3", 315, you turn on the film and you say, I would have expected a little less polish and more of just freaky athlete, bull in a china shop kind of guy. Now he is a really freaky athlete. That is for sure. You take a look at some of the numbers. I mean, 33.5-inch arms, carries 316 extremely well, but there's some more polish to his game than you probably would have expected. And I think it starts with, having a background in jiu-jitsu as a youngster. He knows how to play with leverage. He knows how to use his hands a little bit more than you would expect from a guy that is new to football. If y'all been rocking with the fellas for the last couple of years, I really value line of scrimmage players, whether it's on the offensive side of the football or the defensive side of the football. When you're playing on the line of scrimmage and you got a background in a combat sport like wrestling or like jiu-jitsu, I think it's huge because you naturally know how to use your hands. You naturally know how to use your leverage. That shows up on the film for a guy like Veldon Stone. And USC is going to take as many bodies as they can at this position. This would be an extremely fascinating one for USC to bet on. Another name that I think we have to talk about, Deshaun Rideau. I've been very vocal, one of my favorite running backs in the 2026 cycle. 10-4 guy in the 100-meter dash, legitimate burners when he gets to the second level. But again, what separates me is, he's also 5'10", 200 pounds and runs between the tackles and runs with the ideal physicality and has the contact balance. When you're talking about running backs that run as fast as Deshaun does at 10-4, you normally don't talk about contact balance and between the tackles. Deshaun Rideau has that. It's rare when you get running backs that can check off, hey, I got good short area quicks. I can operate in tight spaces. I can be really physical, but also one of the fastest players on the football field. Rare to get these cats. Deshaun Rideau is one of them. Now, what's interesting here is took a visit to Michigan earlier this week. I believe will be back on USC's campus today, is going to be committing tomorrow. This is USC's final chance, and he's been trending to USC for a little bit now. This is USC's chance to just wrap it up and go land this commitment. And you look at that running back class with him in Austin. You locked up two of the better running backs in the 2026 cycle, which I think is important because I go back to 2025. I'm not out on a guy like Riley Wormley or a guy like Harry Dalton, but I wasn't a huge fan of the running backs that USC took in 2025. So I'm guessing USC is going to want to get pretty aggressive in terms of landing two really quality running backs in this 2026 cycle. You got one already. Let's go get a second one, Deshaun Rideau from Oaks Christian. Another name that I think is worth monitoring, and I'd probably say commitment watch here. A couple crystal balls coming in for him. Jake Johnson. Been playing 6A football down in the state of Texas. USC is having a blast, man. They're going down in the state of Texas and getting some real momentum in the state. Now, Jake Johnson, really fascinating kid, 6'3", 290, plays in an odd front, plays nose tackle at the high school. And you don't see a ton of odd fronts at the high school ranks. You don't see a lot of the guys play that true nose. Jake Johnson does. Really powerful kid. Really powerful kid. Now, there's not too much else to his game, and I think that's probably why he's sitting at that 3-star ranking. These type of players are important. Again, Jake Johnson, and we talk about Tom Tom. I think Tom Tom can be a legitimate game wrecker at the college football landscape. I made the comparison to Mason Graham. I'm going to double down on that. I'm a huge fan of Tom Tom. Jake Johnson probably not going to be as disruptive and as much of a game wrecker as a guy like Tom Tom, but a guy that can do the dirty work on the inside, eat up double teams, prevent offensive linemen from getting to the second level. And I'll say this, if you can land some of these elite linebackers that USC is going after, put Jake Johnson in front of them, who's going to be doing the dirty work. It's the combination you want. You keep guys like Xavier Griffin or Tyler Atkinson free. You let them fire downhill and play in space. It's the recipe for this USC defense. And again, USC is going to take as many bodies as they can on the defensive line. Another name worth mentioning, another 6A player in the state of Texas, Kevin Ford Jr. at Duncanville. What I love about Kevin Ford, he's a multi-dimensional edge defender, plays the run extremely well, but as a pass rusher, has a really good first step and has some nice bend around offensive tackles outside shoulder. He can win with the first step juice and flexibility off the edge, but also can win with speed to power. He's a powerful kid that has really strong hands and can go right through tackles as well. You don't see a ton of edge rushers check off both boxes. You'll see an edge rusher with really strong hands and can go right through tackles, but probably not the twitchiest and bendiest guy around the edge. You'll see these juiced up, really quick, bendy edge rushers that don't have a ton of power in their hands. To me, Kevin Ford kind of balances that both out really well. When you have the ability to win with your quicks and with your power, makes you really hard to deal with, along with really good against the run. And that's something we loved about Cam Fountain when he was coming out of 2024. Something I really like about Kevin Ford as well, and he's doing it. 6A football down in the state of Texas. I mean, that film, you can trust that film because he's playing some really high quality football down there in high school. Another wide receiver, I think, to keep an eye on here, Caden Dixon-Wyatt. USC has some ground to make up here, and I don't know what USC was doing not going after this kid earlier on in the process, but Chad Savage comes in immediately, gets on Caden Dixon-Wyatt, and rightfully so. 6'3", buck 85, 39-inch vert, a bigger-bodied wide receiver that can work vertically down the field and go make plays with the football in their air. He's a tough matchup because he's so big, but he also can work vertically. You're not going to find many defensive backs that have the size to deal with him, but also the speed and athleticism. Pretty polished wide receiver too. Pretty diverse route tree. I would really like to see USC make up some ground here. I mean, we kind of talked about it. USC has 3 wide receivers in the boat. Trent Mosley from Cali. They've had Baker in for a while. Cohen Brown just commits. He's a 10-6 guy on the 100-meter dash. Wouldn't mind one more. And whether it's Vance Badford, whether it's Caden Dixon-Wyatt, you land one more of these guys, and then you put Mark Bowman in there too. That's what you're talking about. That's a good pass catching class. And again, modern day. Caden Dixon-Wyatt, Mark Bowman. You already have Tom in the fold. You are getting a lot of momentum at modern day. Continue that momentum. Last one I'll talk about, Vlad Dukhanov. And again, USC is in it for a lot of top tackles. Most notably a guy like Kenny Pepe. Sam Utu. This is a kind of Tobias Raymond type of player where there's probably some development and weight that needs to be put on the frame. He's a pretty lean guy, but he's pretty strong. He does some Olympic weightlifting, and he's got some nice length, and he's got some nice athleticism. Not a guy that comes in and, starts right away like Kenny Pepe might be able to, but a guy that very similar to Tobias Raymond. You get him into the program, you get that body right the first 2 years. You might be talking about a starting tackle year 3, year 4. Very similar to what's gone on with Tobias Raymond. We got some names to monitor over the next couple of days. This is not the full list. I just kind of picked some of my favorite prospects, picked some guys that I think might be committing to USC. Going to be really fun to monitor over the next couple of days. Again, that USC commitment sweatshirt sitting right there. If we do get commitments, we'll hop on, break it down. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, been a ton of fun talking this program on the recruiting trail. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.